A couple of weeks ago, I called out somebody who has a YouTube channel for his dismissive comments about the Great Reset and the architects of the Great Reset, those who are trying to orchestrate these changes without the permission of anyone. They've taken it upon themselves, this small group of powerful people, to make these changes that most people definitely do not want. And we can see from the last couple of years their agenda being at least partly played out, and the results, the horrific results in what has followed, the erasure of God-given freedoms and liberties in many places, including the United States of America, where God-given freedoms and liberties were what it was all about from the beginning, from the Constitution. The very notion of liberty was enshrined. But these emergency powers have been invented out of whole cloth, and we've seen what has followed. And this person spoke about how he didn't think this whole push for the Great Reset was really such a big deal, and that people were going overboard and fear-mongering about it. Essentially, this same YouTuber is in Eastern Europe based, and he's very anti-Russia, anti-Putin, and very much behind Ukraine right now in their fight against Russia. And it struck me that, while I didn't comment in my prior video, and I still don't want to identify the guy, because I don't want this to become a mudslinging kind of thing. That's not my intention at all. But it was more that the subject matter of what he was discussing, it seemed like it was important to talk about in with some wider scope, like what's really going on here. What is afoot when you have people who, like this guy, this person, who's not a lefty liberal at all, who's not a conformist, a Fauci conformist at all, and who I think shares most of my ideas as far as what's right and what is wrong, most of my notions of morality and culture and so forth. And yet it seemed to me that there had to be, in his mind, and this is me reading into it. Admittedly, this is not something that he has said or has admitted. I don't want to phrase it that way, but because that's not, I don't want to phrase it as an admission, but it's not like he ought to admit this, because I don't know whether, I don't want to accuse him of this. I want to be careful what I accuse people of. But what I suspect is that this is a kind of enemy of my enemy mentality. In other words, we all know that the architects of the Great Reset and their cronies, and those who share their general aims for the West and for the world generally, we know that people like that all are against Putin right now. So, in effect, the way I thought of it the other day was, and I've always been careful not to advocate for either side with regard to the Ukraine war. I think bad things are being done on both sides. And I think that Russia was wrong to invade, and the consequences of that invasion have been, have the results that innocent people have died or been injured or been displaced. That's definitely not a positive good, and not something that should be supported. On the other hand, it's a much more complicated situation than it's being depicted in most of Western media, which just said, well, Ukraine was just hanging around, just being peaceful, and then Russia decided to just invade because they're bad, and they wanted to be tyrannical and imperialistic. No, that's not a very well drawn portrait of what is happening right now in that part of the world. I know that, and I know, and I'm not a scholar by any means on the subject, but I know that when people like Biden and also like his apologists who are on the right and the left, the mainstream right as well as the left, the neoliberals and neocons, they call it an unprovoked attack. It was not unprovoked, okay? It was definitely provoked. But I don't want to get too into the intricacies of all of that. It would be getting in over my head, for one thing, because I don't know a lot about this situation. I do know enough to know that it was not an unprovoked attack, and that's an insult to the intelligence of the listener to say it, to characterize it that way. It's also dishonest rhetoric, just plain dishonest. But anyway, I thought to myself, well, Putin might not be a good guy, but he's the enemy of my enemy. And the enemy of my enemy, the adage is, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Well, I don't know. Is that true? Should we see it that way? I know that's a calculus. I know that sometimes you have to ally with people you find unsavory, and that there's a way of doing that without advocating what they advocate for. There's a way of doing that without being I don't know, soaked or smeared in their crimes. I don't think you can advocate for the invasion of Ukraine on Russia's part, because the direct result of that invasion were the deaths of many innocent people, who knows how many, and the displacement of many innocent people, who knows how many. On the other hand, you can see the role that NATO is playing with eastward expansion, and with essentially using Ukraine as a puppet state, and with a border right, sharing a border with Russia, with and also the construction of those medical facilities, those biolabs, pretty sus right there, to quote my 19-year-old daughter. Pretty sus indeed, on Ukraine's part, on NATO's part, on the part of the United States military-industrial complex, generally speaking. So Putin is the enemy of my enemy. We all know the New World Order types don't like Putin right now. And so I suppose that it's hard for me to turn my hostility against someone like Putin when I know that he is hated by the people who actively hate and despise and want to kill me and my kind, i.e. the NWO types, the ones pushing. And when you say NWO, New World Order, again, anyone who's just dropping into this channel, not knowing what they're in for, or surprised to be hearing somebody saying these kinds of things, I challenge you to go and look around and see the kind of people who are using the phrase "New World Order" these days. It's not wild-eyed nutters. It's not tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists who are saying "New World Order." It's world leaders who are talking about the New World Order and how it's coming. So let's be honest about the use of that phrase by these kinds of people. I just wanted to append that for anybody who happened to be dropping in, who's not one of the usuals. And I imagine I imagine that occasionally does happen with this channel. So I wonder, with this fellow YouTuber who was talking down those who were concerned about the New World Order, talking down those who were concerned about the Great Reset, talking down those who were concerned about the imposition of the new normal, and all those other ominous phrases that we keep hearing from these types. I'm wondering if it's a question of enemy of my enemy, because for this guy living in Eastern Europe, he sees Russia, and historically there's some merit to that, to his perspective. He sees Russia as an entity to be feared. And if it wasn't that long ago that Russia occupied all of Eastern Europe and ruled it with an iron fist as part of the Iron Curtain. It was roughly a century ago, a little bit more than a century ago, when Russia deliberately starved the citizens of Ukraine in the Holodomor. So, of course, there are some historical things that one can draw on with regard to Russia and Eastern Europe that can make one understand why a person living in Eastern Europe is wary of Russia and the intentions of Russia. But I guess what I will end this slightly rambling discussion on the note that I'll end it with is, I think there are limits to enemy of my enemy is my friend. I think one can see the enemy of my enemy. It's hard to fight a war on two fronts, isn't it? And I understand if you're in Eastern Europe, like even my native country of Poland. It's not really my native country, but it's the part of my ancestry that I'm the most proud of, and it's the my name is a Polish name. I have a Polish surname, obviously, from my father's side of the family. Nowicki, I understand, is a very extremely common Polish name, and in Poland they're very conservative right now. They're very inclined to be Catholic and to take Catholicism seriously. They're very inclined to be against abortion, against moral innovations that are popular, sexual moral innovations that are popular across much of the West. So Poland is a culturally conservative state right now. I think it can lay claim to that even more so than a country like Hungary can. But at the same time, Poland is a very, very avidly, I don't want to say Russophobic, because that makes it sound, like a pathology. But they have good, solid historical reasons to not be pro-Russia, to be very suspicious of Russia, and yet they do seem to be fighting the Soros types and the Fauci types and the Virginia Nuland types. So for them, I mean, maybe when you're Polish, you're used to being attacked on both sides. That's what happened to them in World War II, after all, isn't it? So it's hard when you're faced with two things that are evil. And this, I'm not going to go all the way here and stipulate that Putin is evil, but I will say that I can understand if you're in Eastern Europe, being very, very wary and very suspicious, and not liking the idea of Russia invading countries and flexing its muscles, and I don't know, possibly threatening other Eastern European places. I can see in those cases clinging to an entity like NATO. Even though I think NATO, I'm very down on NATO in recent years, and think that don't believe that they have any good intentions at all. But I can understand why Poland would gravitate towards the protection of NATO, and why they would be against Russia. But we see again in the case of Poland, not everyone in Poland, it's a diverse country like anywhere else, but it's a major movement in Poland. It seems to be a majority movement in Poland right now to be culturally conservative and against things like the Great Reset, against the attempt by the wicked elites of the West to try to destroy everything that is good, and create this globalist tyranny where you will own nothing and ostensibly be happy. I'm doing the scare quotes a lot, aren't I? They're against that, but also very, very much against Russia at the same time. So I wonder about my friend / adversary. I wonder if, in his case, he feels inclined to dismiss the great evil of the Great Reset and the enormous wickedness, the demonic wickedness of those who are behind it, because for him Russia looms so large as a threat. And I think it's hard to fight a war on two fronts. It's hard not to, categorize, like, if you've got evils that you're facing, what's the most pressing thing? What's the most pressing evil? Let's prioritize that. And maybe there's a tendency to, if you've got to prioritize one evil, then you've got to say about this other evil, the people who are so caught up in that, or so hung up over that, they're just blowing things out of proportion a little bit, like he said about those who, like me, although he didn't have me in mind personally, I don't think, but those like me and like others like me, likely like you, if you're watching this channel, who see the Great Reset as the great evil that it is. So, as the clear and present danger that it is. So, enemy of my enemy is what? Is it not? It's not my friend exactly, but we have to be able to fight a two-front war. We have to be clever. We have to be cunning, as serpents. I mean, even Jesus said that. Be innocent as doves, but cunning as serpents. So what's the way through this, intellectually, morally? That's the question, the rhetorical question I will end on. Thank you for watching.